Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a pretty massive move update for the Master League, and that is the big buff to low kick for Keldeo Resolute form. Now these battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Blazingly Blaze, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Keldeo Resolute form has some pretty nice charge attacks with Secret Sword and Aqua Jet. However, the big issue for quite some time was the fast move. It was stuck with Poison Jab, a move that didn't get same type attack bonus. But now with low kick, Keldeo does get a same type attack bonus fast move that should hopefully help improve its neutrals. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, unfortunately this team is off to a very rough start, leading Metagross into Zekrom. Zekrom is such a massive core breaker for this team. This team does not have a resistance to electric, which means Fusion Bolt is unresisted, and to add insult to injury, they're actually on crunch for super effective damage into the Metagross. Metagross tries to land the Earthquake, but Zekrom puts up the shield, and now this is where things could get quite difficult. Palkia is going to be no shielding, but Fusion Bolt is going to do a lot of damage. Opponent probably tries to go for a catch onto a Fairy type here, and it looks like Blaze tried to predict it. Blaze threw the Aqua Tail, anticipating a catch onto like a Zacian or something like that, but the opponent just stayed in. I think if I'm in Blaze's shoes there, I'd probably throw the Aqua Tail as well, because it feels like a very obvious catch, but the opponent, I guess, ended up big braining it. They don't end up going for the catch. Instead, they just stay on the field, and they're able to get the shield back from the Metagross. In comes Lunala, trying to snipe down with Shadow Claws, but Metagross is barely able to hang on and make the last-second Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash is going to connect. In comes Keldeo, but Keldeo is not really a big fan of the Lunala matchup. Lunala can threaten massive super effective damage with the Moonblast, and even just a neutral Shadow Ball landing will hit quite hard. The pacing on Keldeo is quite nice. It's faster with low kick than with Poison Jab. Aqua Jet is going to be shielded. Keldeo is going to make Aqua Jet number 2, and I believe this is going to be enough damage to secure the KO. Down goes Lunala. What does the opponent have in the back? It's going to be Dialga. Secret Sword is going to be devastating onto Dialga, but no, the opponent gets the catch. That could be the game winner right there. They catch the Secret Sword onto the Zekrom. Keldeo farms up, and now Keldeo gets the catch right back. Oh my goodness, fireworks in game number 1, roar of time, caught onto the 1 HP Metagross, and Keldeo should be able to secure the knockout here with Secret Sword. Secret Sword into Dialga, takes the KO. What a game 1, and that is going to be a win. We move to game number 2, leading Metagross into Duskmane, and this should be a pretty neutral matchup. Both parties hit each other for super effective damage. Opponent tries for a catch onto Yveltal, but it's unsuccessful, and now Yveltal will be answered with Palkia. Yveltal fires off Oblivion Wing, instant no shield from the Palkia. Palkia does take quite a lot of damage as Yveltal boosts up its defense. Palkia full send into Spatial Rend, gonna try and land some damage into the boosted Yveltal. Yveltal will put up the shield. Palkia unable to make the second Spatial Rend, and it will get fully farmed down. Back in comes the Metagross. Metagross does have energy, gonna fire off the Meteor Mash here. Double shield from Yveltal. Yveltal gonna make a beautiful catch as they're able to catch onto Ho-Oh. But I feel like the opponent switching out of their boost is actually going to be what cost them this game. Because now, in comes Keldeo, and this is a great opportunity for Keldeo to get a pretty massive energy head start. Keldeo has to respect the Brave Bird from the Ho-Oh. Keldeo can now throw 4 and the move. Aqua Jet easily going to be KOing the -3 defense Ho-Oh. Keldeo actually going for an undercharge here on the Aqua Jet, but it will still take the knockout. Back in comes the Duskmane. They do have a ton of loaded energy. Keldeo no shields. It's the Outrage, and that is going to hurt. Keldeo does have the back-to-back Secret Swords loaded. Fires off the first. That's going to connect. There's the pivot into Metagross, answered with Yveltal, and Yveltal actually fires off energy. Firing off energy is a bit of a risk, because that does give a sneak to the Metagross, and that actually lets Metagross get to the Meteor Mash. Oh my goodness, was that a CMP tie? If that's a CMP tie, the opponent, I think, just cost themselves the game. They wasted all this Yveltal energy. Oblivion Wing takes the knockout, but now Keldeo, no, I thought it was going to get the farm down, but Yveltal was boosted. They hang on, and they're able to survive and still get the win. Great lead in the next match, Metagross into Zacian. Save switch into Reshiram is going to be answered with the Keldeo. If Reshiram does have Draco Meteor, then things could get pretty difficult for the Keldeo. They did farm up a ton of energy. Keldeo puts up the shield, but unfortunately it is just going to be the Fusion Flare. It looks like with the low kicks, Keldeo, I imagine, should be able to two-shot here with Secret Sword, and Secret Sword will be able to secure the KO. Unfortunately, Reshiram already has a Fusion Flare loaded, so Keldeo is going to have to no-shield. Keldeo now just wants to try and get itself basically as low as it possibly can. Keldeo going for an undercharge on the Secret Sword that will still KO the Reshiram. Back in comes the Zacian. Zacian will take some valuable chip damage from the Secret Sword. Secret Sword is going to land. Zacian does get a 4 Metal Claw head start, and back in comes the Metagross. Metagross trying to make it to the Meteor Mash, but Zacian able to outpace. Zacian will fire off the close combat. That does some pretty significant damage, and it's a simultaneous switch, Palkia into Palkia. That's a really nice play by Blaze, anticipating that it was going to be a dragon in the back, and knowing that if it was Palkia, he could not afford to be down energy. The opponent actually ends up calling the Aqua Tail bait. That is a pretty ballsy call by them. I guess maybe they were expecting that he didn't zero-turn switch out of there, and so they assumed that he was down energy, but he was actually at the Spatial Rend. Aqua Tail will secure the KO. Back in comes the Zacian, but Zacian is going to have a pretty difficult time trying to Metal Claw down. Aqua Tail is going to connect. In comes Metagross, and the fact that they no-shielded, now they just get fully farmed down. So they were kind of in a lose-lose situation, where if they end up putting up the shield, then they just get KO'd by 3 charge attacks, and if they end up no shielding, then they just get farmed down. We've got a battle of Shadow Claw users in the next game, Metagross into Marshadow. Marshadow does win charge attack priority, Metagross get a no shield. This Marshadow is actually on Thunder Punch. That is not a moveset that I've seen on Marshadow so far. I've typically seen Ice Punch and Close Combat. After getting a shield advantage, in comes Palkia. Palkia will have to respect the close combat. A same type attack bonus close combat does a ton of damage. Marshadow goes for the close combat. They're going to retreat into Dialga, but Dialga is down a ton of energy, and in my eyes, Dialga really does not have a good matchup into the Lesser Dragons. Palkia is able to inflict massive damage, significantly outpace it as well, and Palkia is able to make it to a second Spatial Rend. Dialga fires off Iron Head. Iron Head is not going to take the KO. I really like the play to bank that energy and then pivot into the Metagross. Metagross can force energy out of Dialga, and there's just an entire Spatial Rend locked and loaded for later in the game. Dialga takes the KO with Roar of Time, but this will set up Keldeo. In comes Keldeo, opponent pivots back into the Marshadow. I'm not quite sure of the bulk on Marshadow as to whether they can survive this Aqua Jet. Aqua Jet lands. It looks like Aqua Jet plus a double kick is enough to secure the KO, and it's Reshiram in the back, which means this game is over. Gonna bank a ton of energy, go for the combo play here with the Spatial Rend. Spatial Rend is gonna be shielded up. Did not get a potential CFP sack swap, but the Keldeo has enough energy where the opponent just has no win con in this game. Secret Sword is gonna land, that will be able to two-shot. They can go for the Fusion Flare, but they would need double, and they just simply don't have the energy. So Fusion Flare will be shielded, Secret Sword locked and loaded, and Keldeo proving to be a very, very spammy Pokemon so far. Oh, it actually turns out it did not quite take the knockout, but after one more low kick, that's going to secure the win. We move to the next match. Skeptical Tracer, a very good Master League player, but a very good lead for Blaze, leading Metagross into the Zacian. Zacian not switching out. This works out very, very nicely for the Metagross. Zacian just going to fire off a close combat to deal massive chip damage before pivoting. Close combat, no shielded by the Metagross. There's the safe switch into Marshadow. The Marshadow will immediately be chipped with the Meteor Mash. No shield comes out from the Marshadow, and that's going to hurt. Palkia, unfortunately unable to make the Aqua Tail, as Marshadow did have a pretty significant energy head start. Marshadow makes the close combat, and that is going to do massive damage to the Palkia. The Palkia is in a very awkward health range for the Zacian, where if the opponent sends in the Zacian, they're going to have a tough time trying to farm down, so that's going to force them to bring in their third, which is Lunala. Aqua Tail bait gets the shield into the Spatial Rend. That is a devastating sequence of events for Blazingly Blaze, as he's able to get the bait shielded, land the nuke, and suddenly, this Lunala is in a ton of trouble. Lunala tries to farm down the Metagross, and it just simply cannot. Meteor Mash is reached, shield comes up, in comes Keldeo, and Keldeo should be able to close out this game. Now, the funny thing is, I don't know if Lunala is ever in a range where Secret Sword will KO. Secret Sword is triple resisted, so for Keldeo, it feels unnecessarily risky to fire off that move. Back in comes Zacian, Keldeo gonna overfarm massively and play to the CMP tie. That is such a nice play from Blaze. This means that Blaze is only gonna have to use one of these two Secret Swords, because the opponent has willingly debuffed their own defense. Secret Sword lands, that does a ton of damage, that sets up the farm down for the Keldeo, and Blaze is not gonna risk it. He's going for the Aqua Jet. He wants to secure this knockout and take home the win. Now I'm curious as to how much damage a triple resistant Secret Sword would actually do to Lunala. I have to imagine it's significantly less than 10%. Great lead in the next match, leading Metagross into Xerneas. Opponent safe switches into Lunala, and Metagross is the absolute core breaker for this duo. As Lunala, even though the Shadow Claws do hit for super effective, it's taking double super effective damage in return. Lunala fires off Shadow Ball, shield comes up from the Metagross. The backline doesn't have an amazing matchup into Xerneas, so ideally Blaze would love to try and preserve the Metagross if he can. Lunala is going to let itself get KO'd, and Blaze is looking to pivot. In comes Kyogre, gonna be answered with the Palkia. There's the bait out, able to bait back out the Xerneas. And at this point in the game, this game is already over. Palkia will be able to get some nice chip damage into the Xerneas, and then it's basically Operation Throw Away the Palkia. The Palkia has outlived its usefulness, but by baiting back out the Xerneas, Metagross will be able to deal with it, and then Keldeo just beats the Kyogre. Palkia actually puts up the shield. This I don't agree with, because now the Xerneas outpaces and makes the close combat. Close combat will come very close to knocking out. Palkia does survive. In comes Keldeo, but now there's a potential lose con if the Kyogre is on Thunder. The typical moveset should be Origin Pulse and Avalanche, and they are on Origin Pulse and Avalanche, so that is very, very good. But I think that fully sacrificing the Palkia was just the correct play, because preserving the Palkia doesn't really accomplish anything with regards to trying to win this game. Keldeo is going to make it to a second Secret Sword. Kyogre no shields. They're trusting in Xerneas to take home the win. Xerneas will get the full farm down, but not before the Secret Sword is available. Secret Sword is going to be shielded up by the Xerneas. In comes Metagross trying for a catch, but no, Palkia actually had a move. Oh no, that game was winnable. Palkia wins Charge Attack priority over Xerneas. We've all been there before. Sometimes in the heat of battle, you forget about banked energy or moves that you stored from earlier, and unfortunately that ended up coming back to cost. We move to the next match, picking up a pretty solid lead. Metagross into Palkia. Opponent safe switches into Reshiram, so it's time to send out Keldeo. Keldeo no shields Fusion Flare. Keldeo will be able to farm up pretty soon to the back-to-back Secret Swords. Secret Sword is just such an incredibly efficient move. Like, that just does way more damage than I ever expect that it will. Keldeo looking to overfarm. I wouldn't be surprised if Secret Sword would actually take the KO, but it looks like Blaze just wants to ensure that he's very close to a charge attack into the Palkia to try and get some chip damage. Gonna go for an undercharge on the Reshiram. Reshiram does still get knocked out, and back in comes the Palkia. Palkia will take some pretty considerable damage, and this means that Metagross probably only has to go for Meteor Mashes. Not having to farm up to Earthquake is pretty nice, and the opponent is running the RPS bird in the back. It's Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is a Pokemon that I do not believe in the Master League whatsoever. Ho-Oh, it's basically there to try and RPS Pokemon like Zacian and Xerneas. Its neutral matchups are not particularly convincing, even with Sacred Fire being a cracked move, and with how powerful a lot of the dragons are right now, I just really feel like most of the time it has more negative matchups than positive. So the opponent, they have a Ho-Oh. It's up a shield, it's up energy, and it just simply does not matter. They go for the Sacred Fire. There's the simultaneous switch. Metagross into the Palkia, but with a charge attack loaded on the Palkia, this game is already over. Metagross is just going to go straight for the Meteor Mash. It's not going to knock out, but it is going to put a pretty significant dent into Palkia's HP. Then Metagross will get to go for the full farm down after, because Palkia's energy just simply does not threaten a KO. Metagross gets the full farm down, exiting with the Meteor Mash loaded, just going to fire off that Meteor Mash on alignment. I don't know if the opponent got one turn there or if that is going to be a CMP tie, but there's the switch into the Palkia. I think the opponent just gave up at that point, because Ho-Oh into Palkia is pretty catastrophically bad, and there we see it. The opponent is going to concede the match. We move to the next match, leading Metagross into Zekrom, and the last Zekrom lead did prove to be a pretty big problem, so I'm curious to see how he decides to play this out. Even if they don't have access to Crunch, Fusion Bolt is just almost too strong into this entire team. The no shield from Metagross, Fusion Bolt connects, and even though that's only neutral, that just does so much damage. In my eyes, this is a very safe shield for the Zekrom. Zekrom actually ends up no shielding. I take it all back. They get one shot, and that is going to cost them. In comes Palkia into Kyogre. There's a Xerneas in the back. Opponent tried to call a bait. That backfires in a huge way. And I guess that's one way to avoid being triple weak. You can't be triple weak to a Zekrom if you end up one-shotting it. Xerneas fires off the Moonblast. Shield comes up from the Palkia. Palkia just trying to get as much damage onto the Xerneas as possible and try and get shields down. Xerneas racing to a move, but Palkia just always outpaces. Palkia guaranteed to force a shield because the opponent cannot afford to let Palkia leave the field alive. Back in comes Metagross, and this is going to force energy out of the Xerneas. Xerneas debuffs itself with the close combat, and now even Keldeo could probably get brought in here. In comes Keldeo, low kicks definitely adding up. Keldeo absolutely going to respect whatever Xerneas throws. Xerneas goes for the close combat, there's the switch into Kyogre, but unfortunately for Kyogre, this new Origin Pulse Avalanche moveset is very efficient, but it doesn't have any coverage into Keldeo. Switch timer will be coming up pretty soon as well, so there will be an opportunity for an attempted catch onto the Palkia, but no, the opponent undertaps, anticipating that the catch would come after one low kick. That means Origin Pulse is guaranteed to land, but Keldeo just simply does not care. The pacing on this Pokemon is so nice now, making the Secret Sword, getting them low, and there's the switch. Palkia farming down the Xerneas. All that's left in the back is 1 HP on Kyogre. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the final match, picking up a great lead, Metagross into Zacian. This is the shiny Zacian, which is quite a flex. I do really like shiny Zacian. I don't think Zacian is a particularly strong Pokemon right now. I think Xerneas generally outclasses it, but I do really like the shiny Zacian. And I also like seeing Earthquake picking up the one-hit KO, opponent losing all their energy as they try and call the Meteor Mash bait. And it appears they just have nothing for Metagross. They send in Lunala. They're able to make a catch as they're able to catch the Meteor Mash on the Palkia, but I still feel like the opponent is just so far behind in this game. And one good catch deserves another. Blaze able to bank the Meteor Mash, get the Aqua Tail catch onto the Keldeo, and everything is just going right in this game. It's always a good feeling when the baits get shielded, the nukes land, and you start getting catches. Palkia takes the knockout with Spatial Rend, but this is going to set up massive farm for Blaze's Palkia. Switch timer does come up for the opponent as they're able to send back in Lunala, but unfortunately for them, there's still an entire charge attack loaded on the Metagross. The Lunala has already lost so much HP from taking all the Shadow Claws earlier. Aqua Tail gets the shield, and there's the combo play. Back in comes the Metagross. Not only can Metagross threaten the final shield, but Metagross has insane fast move pressure. Look at the Shadow Claws. Lunala realizes it can't afford to take the damage. It fires off the Shadow Ball, but the damage is already done because Palkia has the Aqua Tail. This is going to be taking the knockout, and then all they have left in the back is their own Palkia. They bring in their Palkia. They're just simply too low. They get Dragon Breath down, and that's going to be a win. And now some final thoughts on Low Kick Keldeo and its meta viability in the Master League. I do think that Low Kick is a pretty nice addition to Keldeo's moveset. Keldeo already had amazing charge moves with Aqua Jet and Secret Sword, but Poison Jab meant that in neutral matchups, not getting same type attack bonus meant that it oftentimes felt a little bit underwhelming. But having Low Kick, having better pacing, and still doing, I would say, a decent amount of damage thanks to same type attack bonus, I do think that Low Kick does help Keldeo become a stronger Pokemon neutrally. However, I do feel like in some matchups, the loss of Poison Jab is actually felt pretty significantly. Last season with Poison Jab on Keldeo, Keldeo could actually beat Xerneas in the 1 shield and the 2 shield. And that meant that Keldeo was a bit of an interesting core breaker. It had super effective damage into the steals. Even if it was a steel fairy like Zacian, you could still hit for neutral. But if you ran into something like a Xerneas, you would actually just straight up be able to beat it even though you were a fighter. Now, it's stronger neutrally, but its coverage is more limited, so I feel like that might actually end up making it a bit more difficult to team build around. I will say overall, I am really enjoying this new updated Master League meta. I'm currently recording this on Thursday afternoon before I head out to cast the Seattle Regional Championships this weekend. I believe this video is probably going to drop Saturday, at least if I scheduled everything right. So hopefully when you're watching this is Saturday if you're watching it on the day of release. And I did just break into the 2700s with a Master League team. And Master League, I feel like a lot of the changes that they've made have made flexible play more rewarding over just trying to get the best alignment possible. And I'm a really big fan of that. So overall, I'm really liking Master League. You can probably tell from the ratio of Master League videos to Jungle Cup videos. Master League has been an absolute blast, and I really like the direction that it's going in. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated, so thank you guys very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.